Let's make a treble bleed circuit. I have a capacitor. I have a resistor. On this capacitor, I'm going to place it kind of across in between these two. I'm going to take one of the legs of the resistor. I am going to wrap it around. My goal here is I'm going to get it tight so that I can do a tight wrap. Now with the same thing with the other side. I'm going to try to scooch them as close and as tight as I can to the legs of the capacitor. And we're left with something like that. I'm going to take my little helping hands here, clip that in place. I'm going to take a little bit of rosin, kind of place it where these are going to be sitting. A little bit of flux. That just helps the solder flow into all those places. Now, I'm going to heat up the area a little bit first, and I'm going to add some solder to the leg, and it should just flow right in there. There we go. Now we have a treble bleed circuit. Essentially, that treble bleed circuit. Here I have basically this is a P base. So we have our volume right here. And the legs of this would go in between. Those two. Now I would trim these legs up so that it's not sticking out so far, but it would go in between these two right here on your volume, and then you'd wire it just like you normally would. You would have your signal coming in, your signal going out, and then your ground. This would be your ground. So in and out and ground. What this allows you to do is that as your volume is turning down, it does not remove treble from your circuit. So it allows your tone, whatever tone you have dialed in, to not get dark and muddy as you turn the volume down, because that happens without that. Your tone will get dark and muddy as the volume gets turned down. You lose treble. So what this allows you to do is it allows treble to bleed through and not get removed when you turn your volume down. Let's make a grease bucket circuit for the tone control. Now, to make the grease bucket, normally we would start with a 0.022 capacitor. That's typically good for like something like a Strat. However, this is going to be for a P-base, so I want something a little bit more darker. So 0.047. So the bigger the number of the capacitor, that means the more tone darkening that you're going to get to. Which it basically means the less high end it allows it to keep as you're rolling it off. So on one of the legs of my resistor, here we're using an orange drop, we are going to take this, or my capacitor, we're going to take a resistor. And with this resistor, we have to put it in line with this leg. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing I did before, where I wrap the leg of the resistor around the leg of the capacitor. As tightly as I can with this busted up finger. It's not very easy. There we have. We have one leg of this capacitor now has a resistor in line with it. And before we get started on putting a little bit of solder there, I'm going to take a little bit of flux and just kind of get it in there. Bring my helping hand over. We're just going to get it on these wraps. There we go. Now, because I don't want anything touching in between this leg, because it will be exposed, I need this signal to go out of here through here before anything touches it and grounds it out. It needs to ground out past this resistor. So I'm going to take a little bit of this tubing and kind of trim it to size. Take my trusty Jim Morrison lighter. We will shrink heat that so that nothing can Nothing can get the signal until it passes beyond this resistor. Or, yeah, the resistor. So, here, we have the tone control on a P-base. Now, this is a 0.1 capacitor, and it is going to go in between these legs right here, kind of similar to a treble bleed, and that's it. Kind of what's going on here. This normal leg goes into that other slot, and then your resistor leg goes to ground. So however you can manage to do that, we might need to bend this leg out a little bit so we get more room. So that is your grease bucket. This is acting almost like a treble bleed does, where you're never going to get fully dark. It's going to maintain the articulate nature and not muddy up your tone. So you're going to get dark, but you're not going to get muddy and lose your articulation with the grease bucket circuit. It prevents the pot from ever fully reaching zero resistance. So it's kind of bleeding in high end as you're rolling into the dark tone. Pickups come into this pot. This pot comes out into this leg. This leg also comes out and goes to your jack. This leg is grounded. So pick up in, out to tone, tone to jack. That is the grease bucket circuit. And even if you did not have the treble bleed on it and just had the grease bucket, still you'd come in from your pickup and out to your tone on this far lug. Center lug to tone. Okay, so that is standard P-base setup with a treble bleed and a grease bucket tone circuit put on it. Put it in this nice little box because I'm going to list it on eBay and see if anyone bites at it. So thank you letter there. Raise up our foam. We'll have our circuit board there. And it's going to be packed nicely in some crinkle crepe paper. So here's the front of it. It just says it's a P-base with volume treble bleed and tone grease bucket. Then right here on the back we have the components that you can visually see. Again, volume treble bleed, tone grease bucket. I have a little diagram here that says pickup hot wire, typically white, comes around and it goes to this first lug of the volume. Now this first lug of the volume has not been soldered. If we look closely, or right there. You can see there's room for you to put your pickup hot wire inside of there. The leg of the treble bleed has just been inserted and wrapped around it. So there's room for you to put your treble bleed wire right there. Then your ground wire, typically black, just grounded to the back of the pot. And it's ready to drop in, but don't forget to ground your bridge. So there should be a wire that is coming up from underneath your bridge through a hole or black wire. If there's not, then just takes a piece of black wire and feed it through there. Take your bridge off so that you can see that, you know, hook the wire there and put the bridge down on top of it, but it should be there. Hopefully it is. Just remember to disconnect that from your old wiring harness so that you can pop it right onto the back of one of these pots. And that's it. So all you would need to do is take your lead wire and put it in through that first volume lug right there, just as it states. Here comes the arrow, and it goes into there. So that first volume lug, and then you just drop a little bit of solder on it and you're good. The other thing I did when wiring this up was on your jack terminals, and this is a Switchcraft jack, by the way, and these are CTS pots. I did some heat shrink on the terminals to strengthen their connection after they were fully soldered. I have been starting to do that on all of my wiring, just because I think it makes a nice secure connection that, more importantly, isn't going to accidentally ground out. Because I ran into this issue on one of my Strats where the routing, aftermarket Strat, not Fender, the routing was smaller and it originally had small size pots. Now full size CTS pots could fit in the cavity, but I lined the cavity with copper ground tape, and given the right circumstances, it just, one of the terminals was, and wire at the end of this little horn here would just brush against the copper wire and ground out. So the fix for that was to start putting this heat shrink on the terminals so they don't accidentally ground out inside of a tight cavity. Other than that, that's that. Greasebucket tone circuit. Don't muddy up your tone when you want to turn the tone down. Keep your articulation while rolling off that treble. Volume bleed. Don't muddy up your tone while you turn your volume down. Keep your tone intact so you don't have to turn your volume and then compensate by brightening your tone. So this keeps your tone intact while the volume goes down. Ready to go. I've seen, oh, also, these are standard solid shafts. So this would drop great into a American or Mexican Fender. Not so much an import. On an import, you would have to enlarge your holes on your pick guard first, and then you would need a knob that is not, it doesn't have the knurls on it. So regular round knob with the tightening adjustment pin on there, so that you would put it in and then tighten that screw. That's the kind of knobs that you need for it. It does not come with knobs, because I don't know what knobs you might want to put on it. I'm not going to make stylistic choices for you. I'm just going to help you get clean tones if you want them. So, that's this. If you want it, it'll be on eBay.